I'm the nostalgia critic guy, remember it so you don't have to. Are you sick of Frozen yet? Well, there's a lot of people, mostly kids, who clearly aren't. Around every corner you see another product of merchandise, another screen showing it, another playing of the soundtrack, it's all over the place. If you play Let It Go in a room full of kids, chances are every single one of them would start singing along. Not surprisingly, this has driven many of us insane. In fact, I even did a musical version talking about how it's all over the place. That's almost a year old now and it still hasn't gone away. This has resulted in what usually follows something that's insanely popular, the backlash. Suddenly, a lot of people are coming out saying the film is overpraised, too hyped up, and not even very good. The film has gone from one of the most beloved hits of the past decade to one of the most annoying by several viewers. While clearly so overexposed we want to bash our brains in with the decapitated ice sculpture of Olaf, is the film itself really deserving of such hate? It still seems like a good movie, not perfect, but few if any films are. So why all the hatred towards the film as opposed to the overexposure of it? I mean, everybody left and right used to praise this, and now it seems to be working towards the other direction. And this isn't like Shakespeare or comic book movies where they're so popular we get to see different takes and interpretations. We're talking about watching the exact same thing line for line over and over with no change whatsoever. On the one hand, you can always pick up elements about a movie you never notice the more times you watch it. Hell, I do a whole series about that now. But when something is everywhere you turn, and I mean everywhere, you start to tell yourself enough is enough. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, but if I was forced to see it front and center in every store, every single place I turned, chances are most of us would have the same tired reaction. That doesn't mean it would be any less a good film, we would just be sick of it being shoved in our faces all the time. Is it possible that overexposure as well as hype can destroy what was originally a good product? This isn't the first time we've seen something like this before. Big Fat Greek Wedding was a surprise hit with audiences and critics alike. But once it started getting talked about a little too much, a backlash started to form there as well. Same thing happened to A Christmas Story. It used to be beloved by almost everyone who saw it. But now, with countless merchandise and even a 24-hour marathon, many have just plain grown sick of it. Part of that may have to do that the original charm of the product came from the fact that very few knew about it. Christmas Story used to be something of an underground secret. That kind of naughty Christmas movie where kids would swear and punch each other, but still return to a loving small town nature that felt warm and genuine. With the oversaturation of it though, that secret little film is now a multi-million-dollar enterprise. And when something becomes more and more commercialized, it feels less and less personal. The Toys and Lambs went from sort of a secret handshake among selective viewers to repulsive kitsch that most people are just sick to death of. Yet the film itself hasn't changed, it's exactly the same. Yet our feelings towards it start to alter a little bit when we start to see it everywhere. Sometimes people can feel a stronger connection to something if fewer know about it. I'll admit, it was a little weird seeing The Lord of the Rings on the big screen. Yeah, they were great movies and changed a lot of cinema forever. But before that, it was something that made you feel a bit more unique for knowing about it. The books were popular, obviously, but not a household name like they are today. You felt a bit more of a connection when you found someone who did read the books and could talk about it in as much detail as you could. When the movies came out, everybody knew about Lord of the Rings. And with the popularity of something great you want to share, also comes the loss of feeling like you discovered something unique. It used to be, you like Lord of the Rings? So do I. Maybe you and I have a pretty cool connection. Now it's, you like Lord of the Rings? No shit, fucking everybody does. How are you any different from anybody else? It's a double-edged sword with many pros and cons. Yeah, it's great that more attention is being given to something that you consider good, but does that also take away a closer feeling you had about it? Interestingly enough though, while the film itself doesn't change, your reaction to watching it can. And this is once again where audience participation plays a big part. Two films I thought were comic masterpieces when they first came to the big screen were Borat and There's Something About Mary. The audiences at both the viewings I was at were howling with laughter and I was there howling along with them. When I was done watching each film, I remember saying to myself, these are some of the best comedies ever. By God, I never saw an audience laugh so much. But then when I watched them alone at home, it was a very different experience. Suddenly, the shock value didn't seem so shocking, and the humor seemed a little slower and more awkward than I remembered. They were still okay, but what happened between watching it with an audience and watching it on my own? How did I go from roaring with laughter to just a little giggle every once in a while? The films themselves were exactly the same, so how come they weren't making me laugh as hard? It was then I realized just how big an impact your environment can have. Borat plays great to a crowd because its jokes are shocking enough to get a big laugh, but also slow enough so that you don't miss any of the jokes that follow. But on its own, the shock value isn't as offensive because you're not surrounded with as many people laughing along with it. Sharing an experience with a crowd where you know something is wrong, but you're gonna laugh along with it anyway. You feel kinda naughty for doing so, but you're doing it with a group, and therefore it feels much bigger and much grander. But when you're watching it on your own, not only is the experience gone, but the pacing seems kinda weird because they left in a lot of long pauses where the laughter is supposed to go. So now the movie seems kinda slower and not as quick because there's not as many distractions with the crowd. This is why so many sitcoms still have live audiences. If you hear a large amount of people laughing, it'll enforce, even if subtly, that you should laugh too. Logically, if so many people are having a good time, that must mean there's something funny about it, right? How less funny would these sitcoms be if they took out all that laughter? Some can still hold up, but a lot of them really rely on it. As we discover, certain movies do too. But as we noticed before, hype can work against a movie as well. If there's anything we're starting to learn here, it's that repetition is fine, but the more and more you do it, the more and more boring it starts to become. Especially when you have other versions to compare it to. John Cleese still stands by that Fierce Creatures is not a bad film, but because they used the same cast as the Oscar-winning Fish Called Wanda, it was hated and despised by audiences and critics alike. So, hype and overexposure can be helpful, but sadly it can kinda be unfair. It can affect us in ways that we're consciously not even aware of. It can change our reaction to a second viewing even if the movie hasn't changed at all. But something that should also be picked up very quickly is that people always want to make a big deal out of something. Remember when Twilight was everywhere? Remember when Transformers was everywhere? Remember when Jim Carrey's Grinch was everywhere? Yeah, remember kids, Christmas isn't bought at a store. Now please buy our board game, toys, and a whole bunch of other shitty merchandise. Yeah, you couldn't escape it for a while. But that's my point. There's always going to be something people are going to obsess over for a long period of time. So I suppose all we can really do is hope that the obsession is over something good rather than over something bad. With that said, I'd much rather take this shit over this shit any day. I'd much rather watch Elsa build a castle than Bella and Edward kiss. I'd much rather see Ralphie and his mother bond than see Jim Carrey forcing a guy to kiss a dog's ass. I'd much rather see Luke Skywalker destroy the Death Star than Michael Bay jerking off to his boy toys. And sure, we'll start to get tired of seeing them everywhere, but we should be happy we appreciated something that had so much creativity to begin with. Years ago, people were sick of seeing Lion King everywhere. Now it's a movie most people wouldn't dream of being without. Remember how everyone wouldn't shut up about The Dark Knight? But now, you put it on every once in a while, and it's still a good flick. We're gonna go through a love and hate relationship of anything that gets popular. But it's good to know that for every terrible piece of crap that becomes a phenomenon, there's something intelligent and inspiring that's waiting to become just as popular. If you're gonna be sick of something you're gonna see over and over, just pray it's something you at least kind of liked to begin with. I'm the Nostalgia Critic Guy, remember it so you don't have to. Hey guys, Doug Walker here. You want to see me in person? Are you in the Alabama area? Well, go ahead and come on down to Comic-Con. That is from February 27th to March 1st. I'm there as a guest. I'm going to be signing autographs, selling merchandise, and of course doing panels. And I'm really looking forward to coming back. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. Take care.